World of Warcraft. My on-again, off-again, 15-year-long abusive relationship with this game has really been something to witness over the years. And here she is, pulling me right back in with a brand new expansion called Dragonflight. It's been a little while since I played this game, but I can quite comfortably say that back in the day, World of Warcraft just had no equal. And I'm not even joking when I tell you that I had multiple opportunities to lose my virginity in high school, and I blew all of them off just to get a few extra hours of game time in. And you want to know something interesting? I don't regret it at all. I mean, sure, an intimate lovemaking session with someone you really care about sounds pretty good, but have you ever experienced the sheer ecstasy of topping a DPS chart, an in-depth, no-punches-pull story that got real dark sometimes? And of course, absolutely shredding someone in PvP. I'm not ashamed to say it, I was in love, but that was then. And this is now. And as easy as it would be to just say that I changed as a person, that would be an outright lie. I mean, sure, we did have our rough patches, and I wasn't always the most faithful player. But I also wasn't the one who turned into a fucking gold digger. I wasn't the one who kept changing and gaslighting all the history and story we'd been through over the years.
Watch your clever mouth!
Nice lady. Someone please help. Blizzard removed my testicles.
And most of all, I wasn't the one stealing pregnant women's titty milk out of the break room fridge. Over the years, WoW really did me dirty. And now, like a salty ex who just can't quite let go of what she was in the past, here I am, crawling back on my hands and knees, ready to give things another shot and figure out if WoW is still the god of MMOs or just another worn out, beat up, ready to settle down, money-grubbing mess, still clinging to her old glory days. Now, it would be quite easy to just jump right in, pretend everything's fine, like nothing bad happened in the past, but we're not idiots. So let's start mending or completely shattering what's left of this relationship where everyone should start when considering an old flame, but no one does. The numbers. Let's not beat around the Elwyn Forest bushes here. WoW was never your modest, small-town, low-maintenance MMO. She was always walking around with some real massive player counts. These days though, they're looking a little bit deflated. But context is required. That's only when comparing to her past self. The second that you start comparing to some of her competitors, you get a better idea of exactly what she's really packing. Oh, but yeah, quick side note. For all the graphs that I use in this video, I've had to pull and verify most of the data you'll be seeing here by myself over the last few months. I had to do this in whatever way I could because most of the graphs and numbers that you'll see out there on the internet are just completely wrong. For instance, if you were to look at most of the numbers that you would find on these game journalist websites, it doesn't take a genius to realize that most of these numbers have been yanked right out from between the writer's ass cheeks. And simply because I don't quite yet have the same levels of hubris that they do, I'm going to warn you that there is still room for error even on my graphs. I've made them as accurate as I can, but the only ones who really know the numbers are Blizzard. So just keep that in mind. Anyway, I'm digressing. See, the reality is that all of us, MMOs included, are fighting against the inevitable ravages of time. And there's only so many ways you can reinvent yourself before people stop caring. But for now, at least, even at its lowest, WoW has always had the player numbers to blow the dick off of every other game in the genre. So that's it, right? Case closed. WoW is definitively the best, and every other MMO out there is just radioactive copium. Except not quite. See, player count is only one metric that helps us determine where this game is and what it's doing right now. The big mistake that we all tend to make, myself included, is confusing popularity with success. See, the old formula of bigger player count equals more success is a bit of an outdated concept, especially when it comes to MMOs, since they're a live service game. Put it this way. Let's say you make an MMO that has 500,000 players and pulls in $500,000 a month. That sounds pretty good, until you realize that it's going to cost you $1 million a month to keep your game up and running. And that's not even considering initial development costs, marketing, updates, and future expansions. And as you can probably tell, Activision-Blizzard's operational costs are a lot higher. Now imagine you've got a buddy who also made an MMO, but they've only got 100,000 players and pull in $100,000 a month. But their operational costs are only 50,000 a month. Now I know this example and the numbers I'm using are very reductive, but the principle remains the same. And guess which one of you is likely to last longer unless something changes, and fast? Worse than that, World of Warcraft isn't even Alternative Balduct's biggest earner anymore. Now, whatever you might think about this cancerous tumor called Diablo Immortal, it turns out Blizzard was right. People do actually have phones. And very little willpower. In its short lifespan, Dibbles Mobile has raked in more cash than World of Warcraft has in the year of 2021. And the game is free to play, technically speaking. All I'm saying is, why would Activate the Bacon put in all this love, energy, resources, time, and effort to craft something with a soul, with an epic and grandiose world and story that almost constantly is never enough for its players, when instead they can just shit out an ultra-monetized, psychologically manipulative, mobile shitfest that makes them a whole golden boatload more cash than something with a soul. This hurts to say, even when I'm mad at Blizzard, but WoW's success is beginning to fade in the face of modern gaming, and it's likely no longer going to be the primary development focus for Activision-Blizzard. That is, unless, at least in the short term, there's something a little bit more solid that can be milked out of the game. Inevitably, looking again at the numbers, in the paraphrased words of a Wendy's munching attic goblin that's far more prolific than I will ever be on the internet. One hair on a head doesn't really tell you anything, but the more hairs you look at, the better idea you have of where this hairline is going. And this one at least looks like it's receding pretty fucking quickly away from World of Warcraft. Sure, the game can still be considered successful, but every other game that they're churning out is starting to make them that much more cold, hard cash for way less effort. Over the years, Activist-Bliz has proven that what matters more than any game they make is money. They will do whatever they need to, put whatever object in whatever orifice they have to not lose market share. And that means caring way less about what your long-term players think and feel, and more about the monetizable trends of the unwashed gaming masses. This kind of mindset means you're trying to figure out how do you get them to spend as much money as possible on whatever product you're pushing, complete or not. And guess what? Complain all you want, but so far it's working out for them pretty fucking great. Put bluntly, if phone games like Diablo Immortal keep posting profits like this, nothing you say has any value to them, because transactions speak louder than words. They have zero incentive to not double down and dedicate more resources to what they would now consider to be the future of gaming. But of course, that's just the numbers. And I'm just a hater. All of what I've said so far is about the past or the future, not about the present. And I'm pretty sure I didn't title this video where WoW is going to be in 5 years or where it was 5 years in the past. So let's take a look at the current gameplay instead. Because what we all really care about as MMO gamers is what she feels like when we're inside of her. I'm going to be shocked if there's any monetization on this video by the time I'm done here. So currently, WoW is experiencing what some would call a returning golden age. Classic is in its wrath phase, and the Dragonflight expansion looks pretty amazing. They even gave us Blue Kael'thas. Everyone and their grandmother who moved to Thailand is raving about how good the game is right now. And they're not wrong. This expansion is super fun, despite the prior presence of a certain rotting elf corpse that's been ruining the story over the past few years. WoW is beginning to show that old spark of wonder once again, with gameplay and complexity in all the right places, like the talent tree, the new flying mechanics that they yanked right out of Guild Wars 2, and even how you experience the leveling. And at bare minimum, this makes the game at least twice as enjoyable as it was before. There's plenty good to talk about here in retail WoW right now. From the new Evoker class, to the cool looking dragons, to the far higher levels of customizability in playstyle, UI, and character. Even the professions seem to be relevant again. But with all that complimenting, I just can't help but want to crap in everyone's morning cornflakes. The big problem we're still facing is that Blizzard is still Blizzard. No matter how good the current WoW expansion is, they've still fucked up over and over again. They've ruined their players' trust and taken a hot, steamy dump in their eyeballs after promising nothing but the purest of epic fantasy. They've lost a lot of trust over the last few years, both with in-game and IRL shenanigans. And from a purely business perspective, it might not even be worth it for them to climb that mountain instead of just refocusing their efforts on another game or somewhere else entirely. Now, putting aside the IRL Blizz problems for a second and just focusing on the game, what happens after Dragonflight? Do we go through the same cycle of the next expansion being utter dog shit before they learn their lesson again and release something decent but to even less fanfare than before because they've lost another group of players? Who knows? Maybe this is a new era for them. Then there's that missing feeling of novelty that WoW used to have. Don't confuse what I'm saying with nostalgia here. I'm talking about that unique experience, that thing that sticks with you, that one effect or graphic from a video game that's just imprinted onto your neurons forever. And if you still don't quite understand what I'm talking about when I say novelty, let's take a look at some other games. New World might have been a buggy mess at launch, but its sound design always stood out as incredible. RuneScape might not have the graphics, but it had its crafting systems and its atmospheric music. Ion had its flight systems. Guild Wars 2 had its NPC interactions and landscapes. You know, even Mortal Online 2 has something just floppily memorable about it. Maybe it's just me here, but modern WoW just doesn't have those standout features anymore. It all feels so standardized, so risk-free. Firing a gun no longer sounds like you just took a quick drive through Chicago. Earning a mount just doesn't have the same appeal when you can buy all the better looking ones off of the in-game store for real money. I could really go on forever about this. Back in the day, WoW was an innovator and a trendsetter. Almost everything it did left an impression on you, from the sound design, to the story, to the mechanics, to the atmosphere, to the neat little tricks that you would have to specifically learn to become a true master of whatever class you chose to main. But even after playing Dragonflight, the only thing that really sticks out to me is watching Wrathion, the rightful heir and child of Neltharion, who was the most badass dragon WoW has ever seen, getting fucking defeated by a stray piece of debris. You know, the very element his aspect is supposed to be in control of. And lastly, the foundation of the game still leans on some incredibly archaic systems that only have limited solutions to them, no matter how much they're updated. You see, usually, in order to attract as broad an audience as possible, a game is designed to have an easy learning curve and a high skill ceiling. World of Warcraft accomplishes this by slowly feeding you more abilities as you level up and getting you comfortable with their multiple gameplay mechanics, giving you more options in playstyle as you grow as a player. But one of the problems is the leveling experience is now pretty compressed from what I can tell, and they shit buttons out at you at a fairly rapid pace. And if you're unwilling to go out of your way to try customize your UI and control experience through the settings menu and several add-ons, there's plenty that just feels lackluster when compared to the control schemes of newer MMOs. This might be a difficult thing to do, but I don't want you to think about yourself when I'm talking about this. Because if you somehow stumbled across my garbage channel, it's very likely that you're very invested into MMOs, or you're just a veteran of the space. But take a moment to consider your brand new MMO player who's never played one of these games before. Imagine them looking up some gameplay for the first time, trying to figure out which one of these MMOs is going to suit them best. Do you think they're more likely to understand what's going on here? Or here?
Get ready to break it. Make sure you guys are also doing
the simple fact is that WoW is currently having trouble attracting new players and a younger audience. And worse than that, if they simplified WoW like they've tried to in the past, they'd still have a hard time attracting new MMO gamers while now losing their old players too. What would you say right now is the most exciting and interesting part of World of Warcraft, whether you're looking at classic or retail? It's the latest expansion, right? Well, to get there and experience that new, shiny, exciting content that everyone is touching themselves over, you're gonna have to drag yourself through 60 levels of an experience that just might not feel worth your time or effort when all you want to do is ride some dragons. And since WoW has so many expansions and stories stacked up on top of one another, it's quite the challenge as a newbie to try and untangle that mess before navigating your way through it. And worse than that, the players who aren't invested and are new have almost zero reason to care about the story. And guess what? You could, as a new player, buy a boosted character, but now you're gonna be lost on how to play without some external guide. And WoW to a new player is very quickly starting to look like a money sinkhole in comparison to other games. And what you're basically being told by the existing community is that you're not allowed to make a judgment on the game until you've already played 20 to 30 hours, reached level 60, and then begun your real in-game journey, which is just the last 10 levels, followed by the endgame where all the actual content is. Now that might not seem all that bad if you're your regular masochist MMO player. After all, you've been here forever already and there's no getting off this ride. But that's a pretty heavy time investment for your average person who in that same time span could have completed at least 3 single-player games by themselves. So with all that said, with all the cards laid bare on the table before us, with all my whining about how I'm just incapable of removing these rose-tinted glasses and comparing WoW to its past self, we've still got to answer the question: is WoW still the GOAT? And the answer is yes. See, even with Activision-Blizzard's missteps over the years, they've managed to maintain something that not many other MMOs do: a core player base. And every time they see those subscription numbers start to drop, even if it's only because they care about the money, they at least try to do something about it to retain players. And after playing my way as far as I can into Dragonflight, even I'm sitting here thinking,
I wish I knew how to quit you.
despite all my bitching about the story, there are still some good, solid, well-written characters that they just haven't figured out how to disenchant yet. The fantasy of the game is still in there somewhere, and Dragonflight proves that. But that doesn't mean this old girl is always going to be on top. At some point, we're going to be taking her out back, letting her see the sunrise one last time before we load up that double-barreled cancel subscription button and firing away. Now, whether that happens because Activate My Almonds can simply make more money through selling predatory wallet-raping games on mobile and stops caring about WoW entirely, or because something newer that just does everything better comes along at some point, remains to be seen. My bet is still the same as the one I've stated before. The only thing that's going to kill World of Warcraft is World of Warcraft. But for now, Activision-Blizzard, here's your crown, King. Just remember,
No king rules forever, my son.
as always, big thank to all my subscribers, both old and new.
Oh, fuck.
And a special thank to the MMO Relationship Therapy Association, who get to watch this video before anyone else. This one in particular took a lot more research than what ended up in the video at the end, so excuse me for taking so long to get to it. Anyway, more content soon. Bye. Oh yeah, and Merry Christmas.